Lon, we'll get to the question on the screen, and I'm actually going to change it up just a bit because it's a bit outdated. And no offense there, of course, Jacob. We appreciate you being here as a Kansas State fan. He says, I don't follow the SEC heavily. What caused LSU to be missing so many players in last year's bowl game? Also, massive respect to the receiver who stepped up to play quarterback. So I'll add this in, Lon, because of course that's ancient history, and LSU just trying to make it to the finish line at that point. But those personnel issues, how much have they been able to be addressed? Is this still a thin roster compared to what it should be?
You look at some spots and it's very, very deep. Defensive line's one of those spots. We lost a few guys in the transfer portal, and it didn't really seem to do anything for the defensive line depth that we had. Receiver, of course, quarterback, but at the same time, you're always a few transfers, a few injuries away from, your best players being gone and things being really questionable. And that's the thing with LSU, Mark. It's the sheer uncertainty of it, because at LSU every season you could count on the 2s, the 3s, the 4s to be pretty dominant. Maybe not the 4s to be dominant on every down, but probably be like a third down specialist as a freshman and really show a lot of swagger growing into what they're doing. But you usually have those second guys who were definitive behind the stars. We don't even know if we have a star in every single position yet on, say, defensive 11 right there, offense as well, because people want to talk about veteran presence and Cam Wire and all these guys who've started so many games. And just because you've appeared in games doesn't mean you performed well. So, that's a whole different thing with this offensive line. Brad Davis, I think, is doing everything he can himself to get this offensive line where it needs to be. All in all, Mark, overall, I say no. It's a thin roster. It isn't where it needs to be, because that's what Brian Kelly believes as well. I think they solved a lot of issues in the transfer portal. I think they solved so many issues on the 2022 recruiting cycle. I don't know how they finished that class in the shape they did. Sealing a few 5 stars from Louisiana, getting all these guys. I know who they lost: Aaron Anderson, all those receivers. Shaz Preston to Alabama, Kendrick Law. It doesn't matter. Those guys weren't coming to LSU anyway. They sealed it with the guys they had to get. They did what they had to do in every situation. And then 2023, what they're doing with this recruiting class as well, what they're building, really strong as well. So I have to feel they're going to follow suit with the on-field part of this as a coaching staff, and that they're going to pay dividends as a staff here in full by really. There's so many different facets to this team that are just interesting to me, Mark. It's hard to wrap my head around, because this team is thin, but this team is also littered with dudes who are going to be playing on Sundays. And so it's very intriguing as to who's going to step up, who's going to sit down, who's going to walk out the door, because one of the quarterbacks will in a few weeks' time. It's going to be very interesting, Mark, for what LSU is going to do in fall camp, because there's a lot of uncertainty in places where we're not even sure if LSU are going to really make an impact at that position this season. Is there going to be those impact players? Running back, John Emery Jr. is going to deliver. Those guys are going to be hungry and they're competitive and they're going to battle. Noah Cain right behind him. Trey Bradford, Armani Goodwin. There's names, talent enough to really push each other this season at running back. Is there going to be an offensive line that's going to be even held enough to get them anywhere this season? Is the rotation going to be run with the way it should be, with giving guys the right reps at the right times, keeping guys in rhythm? I saw a lot of things that really sucked for LSU the last few years, as far as pulling guys out at the wrong time and rotating running backs and stuff like that. Point is, LSU do have a lot of uncertainty all over the place in the positions. It's very interesting. We're going to have to see what these guys pull out here in fall camp